But in the meantime, former President Thabo Mbeki is questioning the quality of leaders in the ANC's ranks. Mbeki says there are certain individuals who do not qualify to be part of the party's NEC. Now, the former president this afternoon addressed the Strategic Dialogue Forum held in Johannesburg, where he had scathing criticism for the governing party. Let's get some analysis now from political writer and analyst Dr. Ebrahim Harvey joining me this afternoon. Dr. Ebrahim Harvey, thank you for your time and good afternoon to you. I think before we get to some of the points that the former president had mentioned, give me your overall consensus of what former President Mbeki had to say.
Yeah, no, I'm not at all surprised. What he should have did was to extend that critique, a very devastating critique of the executive leadership, the top leadership. The NEC holds the top leadership of the ANC. So it's a very scathing and fully justifiable criticism. But if I was Mbeki, I would have gone much further. It's not just the end, it's right throughout all levels of government. When you read the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, alongside, cheek by jowl, did you have corruption with incompetence, mismanagement, etc.? So the fact that Mbeki is now, and these days you find he's quite courageously speaking a lot of truths that he never said one word about during the almost 10 years reign. But very important and very significant, especially in the run-up to the December conference of the ANC, very important. And I have absolutely no doubt that he is correct. It's just that he should have extended it. There are lots of members of parliament, cabinet ministers, to be honestly, if you ask me, they shouldn't be there in the first place.
Let's talk about what impact this will have, Dr. Harvey, on the elective conference. Obviously, this coming just a little over a month before the ANC's elective conference, with the president or the former president talking about some NEC members and, obviously the challenges, the gaps that he's identified. What impact do you think this will have on conference?
No, it's going to have a massive impact. Well, it also depends on the extent to which the delegates take seriously what Mbeki has just said now. And I can tell you there's no doubt, I know he's thinking fairly well, that he says this in the light of the fact that, 1-2 months away, you have the NEC's electoral conference. And he's saying this with a strategic sense also, political sense to it also, that he's hoping that in December, when elections take place, that this has become of paramount importance, that not just do people aspire to want leadership, but whether the various roles and positions they wish to occupy, they have the necessary skills and qualifications and experience to be able to be in those positions. So it's highly significant, but the timing is also very important. I have no doubt that he consciously did this in hoping to have an impact on the quality of leaders that is elected in December at the ANC's conference.
I want to touch on not just the ANC, Doc, but also President Cyril Ramaphosa. The former president, and I quote here, saying our president, Cyril Ramaphosa, is under a lot of pressure on matters relating to Phala Farm, further stating, what happens if they say he has a case to answer? Because the population out there will say there is something wrong. What is he alluding to here? Because we know that Cyril Ramaphosa is contesting to be president for another term for the ANC, and obviously the Phala gate is still a dark cloud hanging over him. But now the former president saying, what happens? What will be the perception if he has to answer to this? And what sort of an impression will they put out to the public?
Yeah, no, look, Mbeki and everyone has been concerned. You see, it just depends on what this parliamentary independent panel finds. That's investigating whether there's a prima facie case to answer regarding, all that had happened on the president's farm. That is the key and critical thing, because if that panel finds that indeed there's a prima facie case to answer, then you know what's going to happen. It will be very difficult with that report in hand and that conclusion for the NPA and the law enforcement authorities not to then, assuming that they say that it definitely has a case to answer and a serious case, and many things that had happened there on that farm is clearly unlawful and criminal, etc. There's no way in fact, if you take the step-aside rule, but this is it. It hinges on what the parliamentary panel, independent panel finds. That is key and critical, because if it finds there is a prima facie case, then what's going to happen? The NPA will then perhaps be compelled to revisit this thing, and only when law enforcement agencies, you see the step-aside rule only kicks in. It can't kick in now. People don't understand. Even Ramaphosa, it can only kick in when he is charged, based on perhaps what the panel in Parliament finds. Only then. And in fact, if he is charged, obviously, and he has to step aside, then he can't participate. It's 6 weeks, 8 weeks away, the December electoral conference. Ramaphosa is out, and we've got bigger worries than really, because who is going to come in? If he doesn't stand for elections, and who comes in perhaps from the other camp, whoever it is, I don't want to sound disparaging, but I somehow suspect, honestly, that we might be worse off than if Ramaphosa had sought re-election and won in December.
It's interesting you say that, Doc, because you remind me of a question that the former president also asked. He says, you want a renewed ANC led by criminals? What is that? Alluding to, some ANC members who are criminals, who are still corrupt, because he says corruption still exists within the ANC. So it seems that he's, asking members about, the type of leaders that are being either nominated, being announced as potential candidates to stand, and also saying, are these the kind of leaders, that you want to take the organization forward?
Yes, you see, the very big question is this, and I can't give you an answer. No analyst can give you an answer. Whether Mbeki is somehow implying, pointing a finger at, until he's cleared, Ramaphosa and what happened on the farm there, But there's lots of things. Well, I mean, H. Magashule has been charged, and you can hear what he said. He doesn't care damn if the delegates from the floor want and nominate him, he's going to stand, etc. How will that work out? It's really an impossible thing, because he steps aside, he's been charged. How can he then stand for election, even if the delegates on the floor nominate him? That nomination is, I believe, unlawful. You see, because the ANC step aside means that he can't stand for elections, and neither has the delegates, in fact, a right to nominate him, when they know that... Yes, this is the problem. And it just shows you the lack of understanding amongst the delegates, that many people are indeed been saying it. To hell with whatever they say about Ace, we're going to nominate him from the floor. They cannot nominate him from the floor at all. They'd be violating the rules of the ANC on the step-aside rule I'm referring to.
Yeah. I want to move away from just, the party, the ANC, just a moment, to more of governance and government. I mean, the former president also spoke a lot about, the police. He spoke about Transnet, SARS. But let me touch on this first. The killings at local government. And former President Mbeki is saying that they have a lot to do with access to resources. Obviously, they're implying corruption as well, implying a lot of, I suppose, the political killings that we've been seeing, but also councillors, some mayors, not only in parts of KZN, but also in Limpopo, saying it has to do a lot with this fight for access to resources.
But that's what it's been all about. That's what does Zondo Commission tell you? And the SIU reports tell you. ANC cadreship and nomination in positions that they've sought in the higher place in all levels of the state is connected inextricably to the largesse. What resources, access to resources, money, funding. You can see even what's happening in Joburg. I have no doubt, in fact, with the biggest municipal budget in the country by far, that a lot of the ANC people who are wishing that they win this battle now with the previous mayor, regains the mayorship because it entails and allows them access to, massive resources. There is no doubt, it's very clear by now, that ANC membership and leadership at various levels of the state has been linked consciously, I believe, to tender corruption, access to resources. That is what cadre deployment has turned out to be. And Mbeki knows about it. He's beginning to utter a lot of these truths. It's just that I think he should have spoken much earlier, you know, and when in fact a lot of things were happening even when he was in office.
And there was a question that we saw some critics also asking, Doc, why now and not earlier, even under his watch when he was the president? But thank you so much for speaking to me, political writer and analyst, Dr. Ebrahim Harvey.